Hello, welcome to the 1 to 11 podcast, Northamptonshire's finest team building podcast that I know of. If you know any better, send it in, tell us about it.
Yeah.
I'd like to listen. We created this podcast, so my name's Paul, and I do this with my brother John.
Hello.
Or Johnny, or you can call him whatever you like.
Yeah.
If you want to give us money on Patreon, you can call me whatever you want. I'm very open to new nicknames weekly from Patreon. But
This week I'm going to call you the Lizard.
so thank you. So this is a podcast presented by myself, the Lizard, with my brother, the Trampoline. We created this podcast essentially out of the coronavirus lockdown. So what we thought about is what we used to really enjoy. Me and my brother used to go to see various football games across the country, and one of our favourite things was going to Ellen Road, because the atmosphere there is completely unmatched in the home supporters. Some chance that you'd never say if you were being recorded.
No.
And one of the things we used to do when we were on the way there, and to be honest, any journey we used to do, which was over about half an hour in length, we used to try just think of something and create our favourite team, and it came from just you remember Italian football in the 90s? Yeah. If you were to create your favourite team of that time, what would it be? And that's why we started with that. If you go back to episode number 1, out of the many units of episodes we've done so far.
I think this is episode 9.
We have one fan, and Scott, if you're listening, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm paying attention. Up at the villa, apparently. But yeah, this is something that's kind of become a labour of, and we've been picking different themes. And this is a theme that's been very interesting for me because, much like the gamer of today, any player who is over the age of 29 is past it. Much like the fan of today, and one of the reasons we created this podcast is almost to think back to a time where we liked football. Now, this is very hard because now football's come back and Project Restart happened, and you realise how good it was, even in an empty stadium. But the things I didn't like about the modern game, you're nothing unless you've won the Premier League. You're nothing unless you've won the Champions League.
And I guess this is based on the fact that we've got
new Premier League champions.
New Premier League champions.
Liverpool, Asterix, have won the Premier League 2019-2020.
Yeah, I mean, very richly deserved because...
absolutely, Liverpool, Asterix, have done very well.
Every other team in the league was awful. But Liverpool were very good. But
without a shadow of doubt, they are one of the best.
31 years since they won.
30 years.
So, I've never witnessed Liverpool win the league before, which is bizarre.
Yeah, I was 3 years old. I hadn't started school the last time Liverpool won the league, and I have a house child and I have a job.
Yeah.
And in that time, the internet happened.
I mean, it's just what we could go on for things that have happened since Liverpool last won the league. Yeah. Unfortunately, one of those things was Leeds won the league, and now I can't say to Liverpool fans, well, we've won the league since you did. But
you could. Hopefully, if things go to plan, in a few weeks' time, as long as you don't specify which league, you as a league fan could say, we've won the league since you...
We've won a league. But yeah.
Sorry, you go ahead.
Tell us this week's theme?
This week's theme is the best players players who hadn't won the Premier League. So it was us creating a 1 to 11 and making it very clear with the kind of the disclosure at the beginning of this that we always do. This isn't the definitive list. This isn't the best players never to win the Premier League. This is our opinion. If you have a differing opinion, I would love to hear it.
Call Adrian Durham. Tell him.
Yeah. If you want an argument, ring Talksport. If you want an open discussion, come
Tweet
here.
us.
Yeah. Tweet us. Go to our Facebook page. Is there an Instagram page? I don't know. You do it all.
No, there isn't, but there will
Okay.
be.
Good. I look forward to it. We don't want arguments. We think this is something that's interactive. This was something that brought us together when we started going on long journeys. When you got your first car.
Yeah.
And we look at this in terms of we have to kind of, as you know, as a white English man, I have to pick a 4-4-2 by law as my formation.
Yeah, I have gone with 4-4-2 this time because there was a left back I had to pick.
Okay. I look forward to kicking myself.
Fair enough. So rules are, because I don't want to be one of those people that where football began in 1992.
Correct.
But we have the rule that we must have witnessed them play, which unfortunately does mean basically it's from 1990 onwards. So effectively, it does cover the start of the Premier League.
Yeah, I was 5 years old when the Premier League started. I remember watching the news coverage of Brian Deane scoring that thumping header.
Oh, what a player! What a player! As well, if you are looking for activities for your child in lockdown, you can get the Square Ball are doing a colouring book featuring Brian Deane, and it's brilliant.
I have never been so happy to see a picture of Brian Deane.
Yeah, holding guns there. But anyway,
yeah. I mean, it's a fine rule. I think for us, it's if we're looking at the best players never to win the league, there are some fantastic players before our time.
Yeah,
Glenn Hoddle was a fantastic footballer. I've seen plenty of clips of him. I've heard people talk about him, but I didn't watch him, so I can't give him that objective view. I'm going to talk about players from my lifetime. Yeah. If you think it's absolutely criminal that someone from your lifetime isn't included, message us.
Yeah, please do. Well, we're on Twitter at the 1-11 Pod. We're on Facebook at the 1-11 Podcast. Please get involved and say hello. We'd love to hear. We'd love to get you on. Get guest people to do their own little 11s.
Absolutely. And if you want to leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Apple Podcast, sorry, and tell us who you'd pick, but leave a 5-star review. That's very important.
If you leave a 5-star review and let us know your team, we will try and get in touch.
We will thank you. We will thank you, but we may not record it.
But yeah, anyway, that's enough waffle.
Absolutely. So let's get down to business. So I'd like to start with my goalkeeper.
Go on. Who have you got?
Shay Given.
Oh, I didn't think of him.
Because you thought of him playing for Man City, didn't you?
Yeah. Had he left by the time they won the league?
2011.
Because I mean, he was part of the Blackburn squad, wasn't he? But never played. I think he was on loan. Wasn't he on loan when they won the league?
Yeah, he was on loan at Swindon.
Yeah. Oh, I really hadn't thought of him. Not even that I thought he was a Man City player. I forgot Shay Given existed. And I had a list of goalkeepers because I went with Brad Friedel.
That's a solid choice.
I had a list like Nigel Martin.
We've given Nigel Martin too much love on this podcast.
We've given him love. We haven't given him too much love. He's still a hugely underrated goalkeeper. But, he's, Jersey Dudek, Hugo Lloris. These are brilliant goalkeepers. But the longevity and the fact he scored a goal. So, and as well, it also gives me a chance to bring up Brad Friedel facts.
The saga of Brad Friedel.blogspot.com.
written in one night by, I can only assume, someone needing acute psychiatric help, but it takes the Frimmy facts and I've forgotten his name,
Chuck Norris facts,
and just puts them to an extra level. It's Chuck Norris facts on acid.
He has dandruff the size of mice.
He was caught making love to Alex Ferguson's wife by Alex Ferguson, and by the end of the night of drinking and BSing, Alex Ferguson signed the deeds of his house over to him because it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen in his life. There's plenty more, but yeah.
He named the group Shana and Ah. They did not want to be called that. It was always my favourite.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'll link it to the Twitter page. Sod it.
Please do, because it's just his semen can form into a liquid human, like the villain in Terminator 2.
Let's not ruin them, because in case our 23 listeners want to hear this, they can find it out for themselves.
Oh, absolutely. So, straight shootout, John. Given or Friedel?
Given.
It's a given for given.
It's a given for given. And it's more a sad state of affairs that I just forgot he existed.
Well, that's fair enough.
There's lots of other goalkeepers I really love throughout. Like I really always loved Shaka Hislop. I thought he was brilliant.
I thought he was a decent keeper.
UC Daskalainen. These are great.
UC Jaskalainen. Great goalkeeper.
There's been some great goalkeepers through the Premier League years, but yeah, and I forgot. I remember Jaskalainen and I forgot Given.
I just sat back and thought, who's the goalkeeper I used to sign in FIFA in like 07, 08.
Yeah.
And it was Given, because he was old, he was decent.
Okay. So where do you want to start on your back four?
I would like to hear your right back.
Oh, this is the one. I really struggled at right back.
You're going to kick yourself when I say the following name, John.
Go on.
Bakary Sagna.
Didn't he win the league?
Never.
I always think of Bakary Sagna because I really like Bakary Sagna as a footballer.
And you know what? I picked Bakary Sagna almost to appeal just to you because I know how much of a fan of his you are.
But yeah, I assumed he'd won the league.
No, he'd never won a league.
He won the League Cup.
So he won the Canadian Championship with the Montreal Impact.
There you go. Well, he was there he must have been there for about 3 years. Because do you know what? This is how bad it is. I didn't even bother looking up Bakary Sagna, who is my general go-to for right backs.
He was there at the second Mourinho Chelsea years.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So I had a mix of three because I couldn't pick one. And in the end, I went with Dan Petrescu because
wrong.
I also had Gary Kelly.
This is turning into a Leeds podcast, I tell you. Gary Kelly was a fantastic right back. I will give you.
He was great, and I also had Seamus Coleman.
Seamus Coleman is good, but for me, Seamus Coleman hadn't lost a step when he came back from injury.
Yeah, he's not been the same player. I mean, he's been great, but yeah, I will pick Bakary Sagna for being actually in some lean Arsenal years a beacon of light at right back, so yeah, I will go with him. So yeah, that was the position I struggled with most.
All right, you said you thought of your left back. I struggled with left back.
Really?
My left back I wrote down was Leighton Baines.
See, I thought of Leighton Baines. And I do like Leighton Baines, but I don't love Leighton Baines. I went with Stuart Pearce.
That's a fair shout. Yeah, he was around until about 2000, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was still very good at the beginning of the Premier League years.
He was pretty much the only redeeming feature of Forest the year they got relegated.
Yeah,
that was a bad Forest team.
Very much so.
But this is the one. Well, one of the unwritten rule of this podcast is that you can never badmouth Brian Roy.
No.
I don't know how it came in, but it's the unwritten rule.
It's unmentioned until now. But
Stuart Pearce and Brian Roy had a very good season there.
Yeah. Oh God, he was a Dutch international. He was at Euro '92.
Yeah, because he's the best Dutch forward of all time.
But yeah, I had Stuart Pearce.
Sorry, I have to qualify. I'm not bad mouthing him. There are better Dutch forwards available.
No. Yeah. He's not for his coaching ability. I think his coaching days are behind him.
I liked the England under-21 setup under Stuart Pearce, and if it wasn't for the fact that they would have won twice, they should have won the under-21 European Championships.
If some penalties to the Dutch.
Yeah, like they lost like 23-22 on penalties. In the English v Dutch. We must show, one of us must win, but we must show we can't win at the same time.
Well, didn't Stuart Taylor miss the penalty because he'd been injured in the match and basically had to take a penalty on a broken leg?
Stephen Taylor.
Yeah,
and that was and the year afterwards that was the nucleus of the German team that won the World Cup.
Yeah.
Later, so I remember watching that final with you in Earlsfield.
We did, yes.
The Leven bottle in Earlsfield. I remember pubs.
Well, we can go back to them on Monday, but I don't think I will.
No, me neither.
But
so Stuart Pearce, much like you seceded Bakary Sagna to me, I secede Stuart Pearce for Leighton Baines.
Sweet. Okay, so let's move into the centre.
I've got one that's surprising, but I don't think he'll happen.
Go on then.
Paul McGrath.
I'm not going to have him just because I never saw enough of him. I know he's brilliant. He was brilliant for Villa when they finished second.
PFA Player of the Year.
Yeah. But
for an alcoholic who couldn't train.
With Ledley King-style knees.
Yeah, an alcoholic who can't train to win Player of the Year is pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah, no, he's a brilliant player. Who else have you got? Who have you got next to Paul McGrath? Who's the legs?
Jamie Carragher.
Okay. Yeah, I can't ignore the fact that he's not won the Premier League.
I revel in the fact he hasn't won the Premier League. Sorry, I revel in the fact. Jamie Carragher in mid-2000s, I feel, was one of the best centre-backs going.
Okay. I've gone with Marcel Desailly.
He was who I had written down, but I went down a Paul McGrath-shaped rabbit hole.
I kind of like the fact you went down that rabbit hole because it's bloody obvious. I went with Carragher's partner. I went with Sami Hyypiä.
So Gary Neville. Sami Hyypiä was one of my. He was just a man mounted. I liked the Hyypiä Honsho partnership.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. Hyypiä and Honsho was a wonderful twosome. Really, they were so good. But yeah, I still think Sami Hyypiä until Van Dijk lately has been Liverpool's best defender.
From what we've seen, yeah, I agree. I think he was just a brick wall, wasn't
he? Yeah. Stylish, hard, just a proper defender. Unfortunately, not a very good manager.
But that seems to be the rule.
Yeah. Him and we could play him on the left-hand side, and him and Pierce could, talk about the glory days. But yeah, because even then, even when I didn't pick Carragher, because when Hippier was fit, Hippier was number one, and as well, even then, was Carragher much better than Agger?
Yeah, he was a step above him for me.
I just think he was like a typically English defender, him and but yeah, I prefer Hippier. I think there was so classy.
You forget how good Jamie Carragher was. Gets lost in the shuffle slightly for me because of 3 reasons: Sol Campbell, John Terry, Rio Ferdinand.
Yeah, and I've never forgiven Carragher for.
At least I didn't miss the penalty for Liverpool.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean. Okay.
I hate on Liverpool too much, so I agree. Somebody Liverpool. So because I don't really like Jamie Carragher now as a pundit, I'm happy to go for Sammy Hurpier.
We'll put Hippier in and have Carragher spitting on the bench, and Maguire or Desailly. I've seceded. You've seceded Carragher to Hippier.
I've also seceded Baines to Pierce.
Yeah, I'll give you Maguire, because otherwise
you've got Paul McGrath. Paul McGrath's safe.
I'll give you him because yeah, he was superb, and the story behind just the fact that he was such crock, and still just a classy player.
If any of you get the spare time, I would ask you to get Back from the Brink, which is his book.
Oh yeah,
phenomenal read.
Yeah, and also Desailly has won the league a lot of times elsewhere, not in the Premier League, but.
And I think this is the thing with Desailly, that you fall in love with him.
I have. Yeah. And I was watching Euro 96 recently, and he is so good back then, and the fact that he played in the Premier League is just brilliant. But yeah, I will give Paul McGuire, because we'll have to we'll once again yeah.
Even at Derby, he was still decent. I know his legs failed him towards the end, and if any of you get a spare day, just sit and read that book. It's heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah, and he still played 323 times for Villa, even though he's gone. Yeah. But yeah, he was one of the first players I used to remember watching, because he was he was classy as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was just one of those players who necessarily he wasn't quicker than you. He was a big bloke. He was big in the air, but he always knew where to be.
Yeah, he was at World Cup '94, which is the first World Cup I really remember watching, and
in Ibiza when we were on holiday there.
Yes, very much, and we watched him beat. Well, not him. He was fabulous against Italy. But the fact that his knees hurt, as they always did, and it isn't like it is excruciating knee pain he's having, isn't it? It's So let's go for Paul McGrath.
Okay, so just to clarify at this point, Given in goal, Sanya at right back, Pearce at left back, with a centre back partnership of Herpia and McGrath.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we move into midfield.
Yes.
I'd like to hear your right midfielder.
Okay. Yeah. I went with David Ginola.
So did I. I even
for-
wore a French-looking shirt.
Yeah. He was, for a couple of years, the most exciting player in the league.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think you look at the story of a man who was kind of hated by his country.
Yeah.
Coming over to the UK and becoming loved by the British, and he's still here.
Yeah. Apparently, they used to, he was, they used to give him space to have a smoke in the changing rooms because, he used to have a smoke.
But he's just one of those. Him at Tottenham, the '99 season, and I think the '99 season gets romanticised by United winning the treble and nothing else happened.
Tottenham was dire, really dire, apart from him.
Yeah, but apart from him, and he was great. And when he started at Newcastle, he was great as well. I think he's a player who kind of gets overlooked because he don't win the league.
Yeah, one player of the year that year, didn't he? And players player. And a very famous goal against Barnsley.
Ripped them apart.
Sort of what now you'd call Messi-esque, I guess. It all sort of, he was only Tottenham for a couple of years. I think 2.5 years. I think 3 years. But once he was at Villa, it all started to go downhill. But I really don't believe it was his fault. I mean, he was 33-ish at this point, and he had a really bad manager.
Very much so.
This is why John Gregory is no longer in the Premier League, and I don't even know where he is now.
I have no idea either. I think.
There you go. No, I think he is now unemployed.
What a terrible shame.
He was out over in. I think last I heard, he was over in India. He's not worked since. But yeah.
David Ginola was unanimous pick for me, and so he's our first unanimous pick of this episode.
Woo! It's nice to have one every so often. I imagine if we move into the centre midfield,
one of these will be unanimous because he's kind of, his legacy is he didn't win the Premier League, but he won literally everything else.
I was texting my friend the other day, telling because the Scottish League is over, and I was saying, why don't Liverpool sign Steven Gerrard, have him sit on the bench, bring him on, and then he can lose that sort of monkey off his back. But then, of course, he just add another one to him because they've just gifted him a title win. But
he'd be Steven Gerrard Premier League asterisk.
Yeah, it's like, people would forget, but it would take a while. I don't think he needs it. It's he's done well enough in his career, and actually, like, he was so close to joining top Chelsea, wasn't he? And then he'd have won league after league.
It would have been interesting to see him and Lampard in midfield every week.
I think this was good Mourinho back then, though, wasn't it? This was, before the bitterness had taken over, and he become basically a footballing version Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, you either you die as a hero or live long enough to be the villain, and he's become the villain.
Yeah. But I think he'd have made it work.
But a villain who's getting 15 million quid a year, so there's a market for it.
Fair enough. I mean, but I think he'd have. I think Mourinho would have made Lampard and Gerrard work, especially with Makelele behind them.
Oh yeah, go and do whatever you want. It's fine.
Yeah. So who have you got next to Steven Gerrard?
Another Liverpool player, just someone who I thought was one of the classiest midfielders I'd ever watched. Xabi Alonso.
Xabi Alonso. I wanted to put Xabi Alonso, but at that point I was worried that it was going to be too Liverpool based because I still had Carragher next to Hippier when I'd written this. And Friedel, of course, was a Liverpool player. And I was like, there may be more.
He never really played for Liverpool.
I know. So I went with Wood Hullet.
He didn't play long enough for me.
I know he was only there 2 years. He was only here 2 years, but he was bloody classy.
He was.
But yeah, I will secede that Xabi. I almost went for a 4-3-3 because I could then get Alonso and Mascherano into a midfield, and both of them were fantastic.
I completely understand that.
Basically, yeah, to stop it being so Liverpool bait, I almost went with Christian Eriksen as well.
Now he's a good shout.
In fact, I'm going to swap Eriksen for Hullet. It's just because whenever I get a chance to mention Wood Hullet, I like to mention Wood Hullet. But yeah, Christian Eriksen, I think is sort of underrated. Just how good he was for quite a while, really. I remember him joining at a time when Man United had bought Bebe.
Yes.
And Ferguson said there's no value in centre midfielders. You won't get a player like a world class player for like £8 million anymore. So Tottenham bought Eriksen for it's believed to be worth between £8 and £11 million. And just a superb player. 7 years he was around, was six and a half years. And yeah, and Tottenham is a much poorer place without him.
Agreed. Very, very much agreed. I think the one other person who I wanted to call out here, just from a point of, I'm just double checking. I'm 99% sure. Is Gary Speed?
Technically, I saw him win the league.
Yeah, I didn't.
But yeah, he won the league he won the old money first division in 91-92. But that was his last honour because then he went to Everton and Newcastle and then on to Bolton, who none of those won the league. So yeah, he would count on our
Premier League one
condition. But I mean, let's not face it. If I wasn't concerned about being so Liverpool centric, I'd have picked Alonso, and I've already got rid of one of my Liverpool players. So let's pick Xabi Alonso because he was the best, one of the best midfielders I've ever seen, and until recently was still going. You don't.
He won everything. He's won everything other than the Premier League, and I mean literally everything.
Yeah, he went to Real Madrid, won quite a lot there. Where then when bizarrely they let him go. and let him go to
Bayern
Munich. Who and also, was it Pep bought him?
Yeah.
Bayern Munich don't make a habit of buying bad players. 2014. I'm guessing that's the Pep years, and so stunning, little player, and great. Won the World Cup, of course. Countless European Championships with Spain.
Well, that's countless. There's not many players who've got two of those medals on their mantle.
Yeah. Wonderful player.
Agreed.
So yeah, I'm not going to argue it. Xabi Alonso.
So left mid.
He was a left mid when he played in the Premier League.
Gareth Bale. Absolutely unanimous. When he was at Tottenham, he was the last 3 years he was at Tottenham, he was electric. He was just unplayable.
Yeah, he was. I think I've forgotten that there were questions and marks about who is better at one point, him or Ronaldo. And it's a shame almost that the last couple of years it's been dogged by injury, and I guess it's almost a questioning of attitude.
But this is still a man who could just. I know he didn't do this in the Premier League, but he won the Champions League final with. He scored in the Champions League final with a bicycle kick.
Yeah.
He won the Champions League 4 times in 5 years. He's a magnificent player, and it's hilarious to think, really, that it was necessity that made Redknapp play him on the left wing.
Yeah.
Rather than want.
Yeah. There's a lot made of the fact that, he almost joined Birmingham for a few £1 million because they just wanted rid of him.
He wasn't that good a left back.
I mean, it's insane.
I think that's part of the reason I put him in it, because I remember a season and a bit after he joined Tottenham, there was that statistic that they hadn't won a game he'd played in. Like 22 games he'd played in, they hadn't won.
Yeah.
Because he came in at the Juan de Ramos point, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Juan de Ramos.
Camoli and that sort of regime that was much maligned, let's say.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to think when it was, because it was basically, do you remember his break? He was good, but then it was a breakout game when it must have been 2010. They played Inter.
And he made Maicon, who at that point was one of the best right backs going, made him look like a child.
He ended Maicon's career.
He turned Maicon into a second-rate right back.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't remember it, Tottenham were 4-0 down inside half an hour after the goalie had been sent off for a professional foul. And at 4-0 down, suddenly Bale takes it upon himself to think, well, I'm going to attack this right back. And was stunning.
And that was an Inter team that not too long before had won the Champions League.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. They were, I think this was the
year after.
The year after, I think, wasn't it? This is the Benitez Inter, who knows how to organise a defence, and just Maicon as well. It just something happened after that game, and he was never the same again. He ended up at Man City, and but there was never the same player. And suddenly, Bale just took off in a new direction, and like he'd been good before, but suddenly he became unplayable effectively. And Villas-Boas really got the best out of him as well.
Yeah, I think Villas-Boas gets a hard ride because he didn't win anything with Chelsea, but I don't think he got anywhere near.
I think it's his personality that people don't like, rather than.
Yeah, he just seems a bit of There's that famous story of him interviewing to be the Burnley manager.
Yeah,
and just confusing the board in the interview.
I can imagine. Yeah.
He came in with a load of statistical information. They just left going like, "What?"
Yeah. But
Yeah, Gareth Bale, unanimous choice. So basically, if you're a Tottenham winger, you're in.
Unfortunately, I did have to mean it did mean I had to leave out Wolf Fox.
Yeah, the Tottenham, Newcastle, Norwich legend, Wolf Fox.
I did put it at one point because I was like, I could only think of Ginola on the right midfield, and even then he really played a lot of his time at left as well. So I just put in best right midfielders in the Premier League into Google, and one of the results that came up was Aaron Lennon, and I thought, do you know what? I think I'm fine with David Ginola.
Yeah.
Nothing against Aaron Lennon, but he's not David Ginola.
No, he's not. I think for me it was. You're looking at the left-hand side. There were people I could have thumbed in. So, in theory, Letizia, kind of.
I almost would not be Solano, to be fair.
The other person I was thinking of was Gianfranco Zola.
I may mention him.
Okay, I'm not. I shan't. So, we're going up front now. So just to confirm, the midfield of Ginola, Gerrard, Alonso, Bale.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, who you got up front?
I've gone for two strikers, and I've gone for players who I feel, if we're looking at it in terms of don't get enough credit because they don't win the league. The first one I've got is Les Ferdinand.
Okay. He was on my list.
Les Ferdinand was a goal machine. To start off in the early years of the Premier League, he was the only redeeming feature of Queen's Park Rangers.
Yeah.
Name another player for Queen's Park Rangers in the first 3 years in the Premier League, John.
Ray Wilkins.
Name another person who didn't die recently and you saw their.
I remember him because he managed them for a while, didn't he? Same with he's managed them like 5 times since.
Ian Holloway.
Yeah. Kevin Gallen.
Les Ferdinand was awful.
Yeah. I mean, Les Ferdinand was as soon as he left, they went down.
Yeah. And that first season at Newcastle before Shearer arrived and he was there, when he was the focal point of that attack, my God.
Wonderful little player.
What wonderful, wonderful player. And you look at the top scorers of all time in the Premier League, and you almost forget he's there.
Yeah. I think it's a shame that sort of, because at Tottenham he was okay.
He played too long. When you think of him at West Ham and Leicester.
Yeah, we sort of. Yeah. But it's nothing against him. I love Les Ferdinand. I thought he was a great player. And he's come up before in the Unappreciated by England pod we did. We didn't actually pick him that time. But, once again, I think we went with Ian Wright instead. But he only got 17 caps for England, which is an indication more of the strength of forward we had at the time, as well as the system. We only played one forward. So, yeah, it is unfortunate, but yeah, he, especially Newcastle, just was shit hot, quite frankly.
41 in 68.
Okay, well, shall I go? I'll go with my first pick, which we've already mentioned, is Gianfranco Zola.
Okay.
One of the few players who I would have happily have paid the ticket price to just do his warm up beforehand.
He was one of those players who just seemed to think differently.
Yeah.
And he didn't look like he was better than you, but he was better than you. The thing that I think gets forgotten because of Beckham and various others, Zola's free kick taking.
Brilliant. Superb. Yeah. Well, wonderful little player. Do you hear where he first came to the attention of England? In the English. Before World Cup Italia '90, they went on a tour and they played a select 11 from Sicily, the Isle of Sicily, and generally Sicilians are shorter, and of course Zola was quite a short player anyway. And this one player turned up for this select 11 and just tore the English team apart. Trying to score from corners, everything. It was after the game. They were like, you realise this guy is Maradona's backup at Napoli, where he won, I think, his only league title in 89-90. But it's not like he played hugely. But yeah, wonderful player. It's a shame he didn't come to England until he was a little bit older, really, but only because then we'd have had more years of him. He was still like the goal against Norwich.
The mid-air back heel.
And mid-air back heel.
Mid-air jumping mid-air Rabona. Yeah, mid-air jumping mid-air Rabona off from a corner.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Just put Zola Norwich on YouTube if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he turned up at Chelsea when he was 30.
Yeah.
Which, of course, as we know by today's standards, he's finished.
Of course. In 2007, the Sun ran a vote of best foreign players, and he came in second behind George Best.
That'll do you.
I mean, don't buy the Sun. It's a shithole. But he left Chelsea under the Abramovich, the start of the Abramovich, basically, and because he made a gentleman's promise to Cagliari that he would return, and Abramovich was so upset at this, he tried to buy Cagliari so that he could then bring him back. Although Zola has refused to say this, but he won his only league title with Chelsea as assistant manager with Sarri. Not Sarri. In fact, I don't think. No, he wouldn't have won the league title, would he? Because Sarri never won the league title.
He won the Europa League.
Won the Europa League. So he's not won the league title at all. Sorry, ignore me. Because it was Conte that won the league title, the title, wasn't it? So it's warm. I
think within this,
who else have you got up front?
The other person I picked was, for me, in the mid-90s, this guy was lethal. And again, played slightly too long.
Lee Hughes. Sorry, that's really bad.
We have a no murderers rule.
Yeah.
I'm going with Robbie Fowler.
Yeah, I didn't go with Fowler. Shall I tell you why?
Why is that?
I went with Fernando Torres. I love Fowler. And once again, possibly I saw him go too long.
But you think about it, when he was at Cardiff, he's 45 now.
Yeah, he's just left his job in Australia, hasn't he?
He was 32 when he went to Cardiff.
Yeah.
But he was a player for me who I really enjoyed. He looked like he enjoyed the game.
Yeah.
He was the last one for me that I really felt like was like you felt like he was playing it in the street every night. Because
there was that sort of succession of Liverpool players, wasn't there? That there was Fowler, Bush, then Fowler, Owen, and then Torres. And now they've got a front three to die for. But yeah, they've had some wonderful players up front, and it was basically a coin flip between Torres and Fowler, and I just preferred Torres. I just thought he was a better player, even though probably Fowler's record is better, and like he got 30 goals 3 years in a row.
The key difference for me with this, and what I felt made it slightly better, is Fowler came into a Liverpool team that wasn't going to win the league.
They were really bad as well.
Fowler started playing the Liverpool team that, from my understanding of the time, didn't really effectively challenge for the league.
No.
Torres joined the European champions.
He did, but
for me, that's the difference, because for me, it's I'm not saying anything different in terms of the player. I really enjoyed watching Fernando Torres, and again, I think he gets a bit of a wait a second.
Torres never won it with Chelsea.
Okay.
He won the Europa League.
The Champions League.
But he never won the Premier League.
Okay.
But he'd left by the time that Mourinho came back. Because as well, staying in Liverpool, like Suarez
should have won it, and also, as much as I rate Suarez as a player, he had essentially 2 years in the Premier League, 2 good years in the Premier League.
Oh yeah.
4 seasons in the 3.5 seasons in the Premier League.
Oh yeah, and since then he's won 4 La Ligas, and but I'd rather that someone shone brightly for a couple of years than was. I kind of like those type of players. That's just how I am.
I went with. I kind of had the Liverpool striker in mind here, because
if you give me Zola, I'll let you have Fowler.
If I give you Zola, I'd prefer Les Ferdinand.
Ooh, yeah, I'm happy with that.
They've had Gerard Alonso and Herpia. Liverpool fans have had enough. I'm not giving Liverpool fans enough after the last week. I'm not letting them have this much elation.
Yeah, and as well, Ferdinand really should have won the league. It was playing basically with that front line of him and Beardsley, and just the
Kevin Keegan's front seven.
Yeah.
His 3-7 he used to.
In fact, I was quite shocked that no one mentioned Philip Albert.
We've already given him love on another podcast. I'm not. There's only so much mustachioed Belgian I can take.
Yeah, and plus he wasn't that good a defender.
No, and he was a defender who played up front.
Yeah, I just don't think it's his fault. I think he actually is quite a good defender, just in a horrible system. But yeah, okay, I'll have Zola Ferdinand would be toit.
There's one player I was thinking of before I realised he did win the Premier League.
Who's that?
Dion Dublin.
Won the Premier League with Man United.
Yeah.
Yeah. I only know that because he was on. He was interviewing, I think, Trent Alexander-Arnold this week, and he got his Premier League trophy out because they used to get a little Premier League trophy because our uncle lives in Middlesbrough and used to drink with Gary Pallister's dad. And
Yes.
when Man United won the title, he used to bring his little trophy into the pub.
Well, Gary Pallister won the league 4 times.
Yeah, good player though.
That's a player who doesn't get the recognition for how good he was.
Yeah.
Because you forget how fat he was at Borough at the end. But
yeah, he was not moving very lightly, let's say. But yeah, I'm happy with it, team.
Okay, cool.
Do you want to go through it?
So we're starting with Shea Given in goal.
Yep.
With full-backs of Sanya on the right and Pearce on the left. Centre-back partnership of Herpier and McGrath. With a midfield on the wings, you have Ginola on the right, Bale on the left, and you have Gerard and Alonso in the middle. With a partnership up front of Gianfranco Zola and Sir Leslie Ferdinand.
I think that'd be a fine team together. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Not enough Hullet for me, but it's fine.
Yeah, too much Liverpool for me. They've had too much recently.
Well, the thing is that let's not forget that they have a lot of Liverpool players here because it has taken 30 years to get a team together. They've had wonderful players throughout that, apart from maybe the first few years of the Premier League when, Dean Saunders and I was trying to look back at that team and the only person I could fit in was Rob Jones at right back.
No.
Who was okay, but I didn't see enough of him. And actually, he was by the time you'd have been watching football, would have been on treatment benches because he retired at 27.
Paul Lake, Michael Johnson.
Yeah.
For me, there was, as soon as I thought about Sanya, I was like, I don't remember Sanya winning the league. I was like, yes, fantastic. Then I thought, Clichy. Yeah, I'll look at Gail Clichy. I'll pick him on left. He won it 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah, he hung around a bit longer, didn't he?
Oh, he was also part of the Invincibles, which I completely forgotten about.
Oh, what did he? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I forgot he was there. I forgot he'd come through at that point. But
yeah, I think that's the team we're going to go with. We'll look to come back in the near future. We'll announce you'll see the theme when we get there.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll come up with something. But yeah. In the meantime, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. And please share your 1 to 11 with us. Please give us likes on Apple Podcasts. And thank you very much. And we'll see you next time we record.
Thank you very much. See you soon.